This is an example of the feathers before shrinking, and this is what they look like after they've come out of the oven. So you can see they're quite a bit smaller. That's the same 10 centimetre by 10 centimetre grid behind it. Now it's time to make holes in your feathers. You can do this using the stove top. Because I'm upstairs away from the stove, I'm going to use a cigarette lighter. What we need to do is heat up the tip of our safety pin until it is red hot. So just be careful when you do this, that you don't burn yourself. Now once it's red hot, it can be used to melt a hole in the top of your feather. So you need to be about 2 millimeters away from the edge to do this. So now you have a hole in the top of your feather. I recommend laying out a piece of fabric so your beads don't go everywhere. In your kit, you will have received a beading needle which has been sticky taped to the back of this card. You will have also received some thread, some beading thread. Which I recommend that you cut off a 60 centimetre section. So you've got your 60 centimetres of thread, your packet of beads, your 2 shrinky plastic feathers, and now we can start the project. The first thing we need to do is thread the needle. This is a double-sided needle that completely opens up in the middle. You need to carefully put your nail into the groove and open up a section so you can thread your beading thread through the gap. You don't need that much, probably about 10-15 centimeters will be enough, and then pull it down to one end. If you do need to unthread your needle, you need to do a reverse of this process. So once again, you put your nail in the groove, you open it up, and then you must slide the thread away from the end so it pulls out of the needle without shredding the thread. This sometimes is needed if you've threaded your beads in the wrong way and you need to undo a section. You'll need to do this. Now it's time to open up your pack, your little kit for this project. Just very carefully put them out on the fabric, trying to make sure that they don't roll away. Let's have a look what we've got in our pack. You should have a couple of hooks to go through your ears. You'll have a couple of black beads. You'll have a couple of the turquoise chunks, and then you'll have some smaller seed beads. In this one, it's turquoise and black. In some of the kits, it's just a metallic black with no small turquoise beads. Just depends which kit you received. Now what we're going to do is tie a knot in the very bottom of the beading thread. Tighten it and then trim it off, about 2 millimeters left hanging off. Then what we need to do is get our needle and thread it through the small hole that you've made at the top of your feather. The next step, so you don't pull it all the way through, you carefully get the tip of your needle and you thread it through just below the knot, which will allow it to slide in a loop and catch on the top of your feather. So you tighten that up gently. Now we're going to decide what beads we're going to use. I actually nearly ran short with this particular configuration of beads, so I would recommend that you either count out your beads to make sure that you have enough for this, or you possibly consider eliminating the 3 black at the very bottom. So in this one I did 3 black, then a turquoise chunk, turquoise bead, seed bead, black, turquoise black. But in your one you might want to consider just going straight for the turquoise chunk above your shrinky plastic product. So once you've laid out the beads, you can just pick them up with the tip of the needle. So it will either be those 3, or you could go straight for this turquoise chunk if you don't have enough of the seed beads in your kit. So each bead that you decide to use, just pick them up using the tip of your beading needle and slowly slide them down onto your earring. So it's up to you whether you do this configuration, or you can choose your own design in order to do the project. Now it's time to reach the stage where you will be attaching the hook. So at this stage you will want to have 3 of the seed beads in one particular color. Pick them up, and then you will need to thread through the circle at the bottom of the hook with your needle. From there we are going to tie 2 knots. So we'll thread it back through the loop and tie off a knot, making sure that your thread is at a reasonable tension through the earring. So you don't want it loose down the very bottom, so make sure it's all nice and firm the whole way through the earring, and then tie off 2 knots. So it's a double knot onto the hook of the earring. Then you'll need to add another 3 of the small beads, which is the return of the loop, and then you're going to go thread the needle all the way back through the whole of the earring to make it down to the shrinky plastic feather or leaf or whatever you've got, right down the bottom of your earring. Once again, make sure it's fairly firm. Okay, so we don't want any sections where we've got loose thread. So tighten it up. And then we're going to go back through the shrinky plastic a second time. And we're going to tie off a single knot. So loop it round. It's a bit fiddly, but loop it round the back of the earring, the thread round the back of the earring, and then slide the needle through to tie off a knot. From here, there are 2 options. You'll either go back up through seed beads to then tie off a knot below the chunk of turquoise, or if you didn't use the seed beads in this position, you will tie off a knot below the turquoise. In this situation, I have threaded up back through the 3 seed beads, and then I'm going to tie a double knot below the chunk of turquoise to finish off the project. So for some of you, you may have chosen not to do the 3 seed beads, So you will be tying off a double knot above your plastic, shrinky plastic object, feather or leaf or anything else. So you tie a double knot onto the thread, and then you'll be able to just make sure it's all nice and straight. You can then trim it off with a pair of scissors. And now we've got our finished pair of earrings. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I cannot wait to see what you've come up with.